Before we get started today, I wanted to direct your attention to d2cplus.co, where we have $1 trials for our private membership community, where you're going to get access to all of our amazing workshops and challenges like the Influencer Flywheel Challenge, the Automation Challenge, and the Standout with Snapchat, our Snapchat challenge that we just finished recording. You'll get a full course library. You'll get access to our private group. You'll get access to these podcasts when they are recorded, where you can ask questions live. You're going to want to join d2cplus.co, and you can do it right now for $1. So you should go there right now, d2cplus.co, join for $1 only, and get all of that awesome D2C goodness. Hello and welcome to All Killer No Filler. It is Friday, and I am here with the Pilothouse Brain Trust across our executive and our creative teams to talk a little bit about how to grow teams that scale. At Pilothouse, we've experienced just an unbelievable growth spurt over the last 10 months, and it's been a thrilling thing to be a part of. And so I wanted to gather the gang together to chat about how we've handled this growth, how we've kept propelling it forward, and what we see on the horizon. Welcome to the podcast. I want to give a special welcome to Jordan. This is his first time on All Killer No Filler. We have, of course, Cam Wind with us as well, Kyle Hitchcox, co-founder of Pilothouse, and Dave Steele, El Presidente, as we say. So welcome to the potty today, guys. Dave, start with you. What would you say is the number one key to growing teams that scale?
Really good question. I've been thinking about it since I got the invite. I would boil it down to this concept of a scale culture. And what I mean by that is, like, what we've experienced, at least in our industry, as you scale, you find more complexity, right? You go out into the unknown. Process is good to deal with that complexity, but it's almost done, retrospectively, because you first have to experience the chaos, then build the process. And the problem with our industry is that process becomes dated so quickly, right? The things that used to work 2 months ago don't work today. So you almost have to imbue that process into the people, and then it solves on an ongoing basis. You know what I mean by that?
I think I do. Makes me think of CRISPR. Instead of just doing the gene editing, you have to program in gene drives so that the gene drives can do the editing kind of on the fly. That's a weird metaphor, but that's where it made me think.
We've always had this like idea of bumpers too. So like get the right people on the bus, like classic from good to great. But this idea of bumpers and different people for different experiences or different roles, bumpers come from bowling, right? Like you put some kids down a bowling alley and you start chucking rocks. But some people are good at bowling and some people aren't good. And so the better those people get in their roles, the less, the broader the bumpers, the less oversight, the more trust and the more empowerment that they receive in our organization anyway.
But they need to be okay with chaos a little bit. Like that, I think that's kind of what you're saying. You need to be able to sort of consume chaos and shit out order.
The word chaos is negatively perceived. I think there's a good way to look at it. Like chaos is opportunity. And so I think like framing it that way, Eric, is probably a more constructive way. But I agree in what you're saying.
I don't think there's any ways around the fact that the amount of moving pieces that you're going to have at an agency across, a creative agency, a media buying agency, the new clients coming on all the time, the new changes in the environment, whether it's the ad algorithm or whatever, you can't help but have an element of chaos in the business. And I think you have to find employees, like you say, Dave, that are going to be able to handle that reality and then to be able to form order out of it with the team mentality.
Yeah, and there's a few like boots on the ground things you can do, I believe, to imbue that culture. The classic "it's okay to fail," discussion. You really have to live it, because what happens in the chaos, in the unknown, is people trip, right? People make mistakes. Ads manager has a new checkbox that you forgot to check, and now your campaign sucks. If you have a culture that says it's okay to make that mistake, but don't make it in silence, right? That learning needs to be cascaded across the entire team, whether the learning was from a failure or a screw up, or whether it was from a win. And by creating that visibility and that transparency always, you really do have that sort of like that flying V pattern where the person in front of you who's tripping in front of you helps you and speeds you up to reach your next level faster.
Yeah, actually, Dave, that's a really good point, the flying V. I think recently I heard you say actually too, like we've taken the typical hierarchy, the triangle, and we've actually flipped it upside down. So we're really pushing people in front of us to do the things that they want to do. I think like from a management mentality, that's been a big difference. Whether or not the staff realize that that's our thinking or not, I don't know. I can see Jordan being like, oh, that's interesting. The other thing, the other thing that, you know, Eric, you're talking about chaos. I read recently the difference between an entrepreneur is the only difference between an entrepreneur and a non-entrepreneur is someone who looks at chaos as opportunity. And so that kind of ties into what we were saying earlier and what Dave is saying, and Jeff has said in the past a lot, is that we encourage entrepreneurial mindset, and we encourage finding opportunities for people to excel in the chaos or an opportunity that is derived from said chaos.
I love it.
It seems like these a lot of this is covering the same kind of thing we were talking about earlier about mindset. You know, there's constant hiring with the mindset of that, you know, we're going to give you feedback straightforward and critical, but it only is going to help you and the team align itself and grow further and faster. And so like everything with chaos, like Kyle said, it's happening for you for sure. It's getting everyone aligned faster.
Very cool. And
Also, like the sport, like talking about flying V's, like the sport analogy, I was like reflecting on that a lot last week. And coming from a sports background, I just feel like this is just one giant sports team. Like I truly believe that, you know, and like you can structure it a number of different ways. Like we're sure we're one team, or like all of the divisions within Pilothouse are like individual teams, but the commonality is that we all kind of know what like our Stanley Cup is in a way. And we talk about it from like the moment we interview people all the way through to our internal meetings, to one-on-one meetings. Like the first time I talked to a graphic designer who's like 100% creative driven, they come in, it's like, your job is to create art that sells products. Like at the end of the day, you're a marketer, but you're using your creative talents to do it. So it's like right away, you're setting the framework for them that they know what their goal is and we're all working in the same direction. And it's like, it's just super competitive. I love it. It feels like we're on a big team. And that's why I think we can scale so quickly.
Yeah, guys, and just as we talk through, we should approach these ideas not in an agency format, but in a general, whether you're a brand or any organization, because you have cultural shifts too, like millennial shift, like people want to make their own decisions. So like, get your fucking ego out of the way and support that person and help them make good decisions, right? You'll move a lot faster. I think that we can cover a lot of ground here.
I love it. And we're, you know, with the way this podcast is structured here, we have our, you know, our hirer in chief with Dave. We've got our head of the creative team with Cameron, who's been allowed to sort of build his team. You've got Jordan on the onboarding team. And so I think, you know, building out his team of designers, you know, Navy SEAL designers, you know, for our clients when they first come on, essentially. And I think it speaks to Dave's idea of being able to, you want to be able to put people in positions that also have this team growth mentality and allow them to hire. Like Cam, are you doing all of your departments hiring?
Yeah, on the creative side, yeah. And then I mean, Jordan's taken some autonomy with his, like, you know, creative team, and we're kind of obviously under like the same umbrella, but you know, they have their own purpose and their mission, and we have our own purpose and our mission. We work to you know, together collectively in order to accomplish that. But you know, we've hired a number of people. Yeah.
Cam, the sports organization, actually, like that's a really cool way to look at it. Not just like, let's take hockey, for example, you're a hockey player. Like you're on the ice, you got your team, but you have all these support systems too, right? And so it's like, I don't know, Lindros. It's Lindros. No, not Lindros. Who went to management after leaving the ice?
Shanahan.
Yeah, totally, right. And then I totally see it. There's like a set vision, this idea that we're all fighting for the same thing. It's just, I just loved hearing that. Thank you for that.
And like the chaos, right? It's like you're gonna lose. There's gonna be games where you play like shit, but you've got a coach or a GM, like whatever analogy you want to use, like corralling the chaos. But at the end of the day, you know what you're working towards. Like,
yeah, and the team building. Like, if we're gonna stick with the sport, Cam, like best time to build a team is in tournaments, when things happen, when there's a lot of intensity around a certain goal or a certain assignment. And I know I can reflect on like something with each one of these panelists about a moment where we've kind of been in the thick of it, where something, you know, might not have been going your way, and you work together. And after you come out of that, you're much more open about it. You know, you've got a better rapport established with that person. You can communicate better. You can flow ideas through. So like, it's just, there's so many benefits of chaos, and it goes to that old adage of like, it's happening for you, not to you.
Part of it
Love
too
it.
is like, I think shout out to like obviously the exec team, but we have such a diverse exec team. Like everyone has their own leadership style, right? Like all four of them are so unique in the way they communicate to the team. And there's value in having all four of you there. And I feel like that's reflected within our teams kind of like below you guys. So it's like important to put the right people in the right seats. And it's just like snowballed into this group of, you know, like 85 plus because of, I think that reason exactly.
I was chatting with a friend of mine who's at the point in his agency where he's the main focus point of the agency, and he's got a team of people behind him, but he's the face of the agency. He's really the bottleneck in a lot of ways, and he's looking at what Pilothouse does, and he's like, "What's the secret?" Like, you know, he was asking me for tips on it or whatever. I'm like, "Well, first of all, you need 4 founders, each of them with like a diverse set of skills, different management style. They challenge each other all the time. You need you know, there's a lot in the makeup of our company that I really appreciate. And the thing that I would call attention to in this podcast is the idea of leading from the rear in the way, which is something that I think, Kyle, you embody extremely well. And I think in an environment where there are so many moving pieces, having people on the founding team, you know, in alongside the troops leading from the rear essentially has been a big component of allowing us to maintain system integrity as we grow.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And the
This
fact
is
that
not all
everyone's a little
me.
bit afraid of you.
Ah,
We love you, but there's,
I don't.
but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. You got to have someone who's direct. But you know, the fact of the matter is like, it's purely just messaging to help encourage people to be better. It comes from a loving place. I'm not an asshole, by the way.
No, but you challenge people, right? And I think it's fair. And I think anyone who's worked with you would recognize that you know, you're someone who is going to challenge ideas and is going to I was talking, I've been, you know, talked about it with Cam the other day, but no one ever would walk away from those situations thinking that it wasn't a valid experience, right? Like, and I think it's important to have people willing to challenge a lot of different things in an organization when you have as many moving pieces as we do.
Yeah, and just going back a bit, so you know, certainly we've talked about this in the past, but like Cam, you just said different personalities at the owner level, for sure. But like we fucking battle in our meetings. Like we're into it, digging in. We're like, let's figure out the best opportunities. No egos about it. It's just like, let's just cut through. Let's get to the best decision. Sometimes a decision makes 6 months, and sometimes it takes like a minute because someone comes up with a great idea. And that honestly, like, we've always been like that. I don't know why. It's just like, let's deduct, let's find the best resolution. And that's why we're moving so quickly. And that's why these guys are able to create these great teams so quickly, because they're doing the same thing. They're thinking critically, and they're doing all those different skill sets for sure across the board. But, you know, it's also like there's like this stretch thing happening where it's like Dave's so far forward in vision and I'm so stuck in the weeds. And then there's these 2 guys on the side that are like moving us around. And it's just created this beautiful trajectory and this like fascinating landing pad for talent.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. We've got some questions here that I think we just you know, from the D2C Plus community. Go to d2cplus.co if you want to join. Robin, who's on with us here, is not the Robin Holdsworth, our designer. He's someone from D2C Plus. He was correcting us, so that's great to know. Here's a question here. Early on, how did Pilothouse determine the type of structure they wanted, and what resources did they utilize to arrive at that conclusion? Is that
It's a Dave question.
The structure has continually evolved, I would say, right?
Yeah, and I guess I'm assuming that means structure in terms of like departments and things like that.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it comes back to this point of it was chaos. We didn't know. Like we didn't know this would be the best, and it probably isn't the best, and we'll probably change it in 2 months. And just being okay with that is really how we came about it. Like, I don't know unless anyone else wants to.
Can you talk a little bit about how we do structure things?
Of course. Okay, so we originally identified, like, we were pretty media buyer focused. Like that was our bread and butter. We were media buyers, and we did everything, full funnel. That was kind of our shtick at the time. But then we realized that, well, if one person is doing the full funnel, and traditionally in an agency, you stack up multiple accounts on a media buyer, and it's like, how can this one person possibly do a great job across 3 accounts, full funnel, that's ranging in skill sets, right? You have to be a great media buyer, creative director, copywriter. Like it's just not possible. So we quickly identified we wanted to go deep. So take as many accounts off their plate as possible so they can be hyper focused, and then build the team. Like our meetings, we go like 10 to 12 people at times on a call, being like, hey, common objective, we need to sell the shit out of this product. How are we going to do it? And across all the skill sets, we can do a good job of it. So how that works is media buyers and a role we call the content manager, who's really the content strategist. Like, what's top of funnel creative, middle of funnel creative, bottom of funnel creative? What are all the angles we need to come up with to sell this product? Those 2 people are riding the same skis. Whereas traditionally, you've got media buyers and creative people separated. Creative, kicks over ads to the media buyers run it, and there's no feedback loop there. So we really tried to cut through on something. Jordan, Cam, and the team have done a great job of really putting those 2 people and 2 components together. Those folks are supported by a number of other departments, such as the creative development team. So the content manager comes up with an idea, as collaborates with the media buyer on that. They kick it into the creative development team, which is comprised of graphic designers, video designers, everybody who's got hands-on tools or hands-on cameras. They're also supported by the comment moderation team. So we've got a division that works exclusively on accounts to generate revenue from comments. They work with the copywriting team. They work with the landing page team. They work with the UGC development team. So the media buyer and the content manager come up with ideas, and then they can leverage this whole network of spokes on the wheel we like to use. So any engagement we work with, it's like, we don't care if you're doing it or we're doing it. What's important is that it's being done well. Every single spoke in the wheel must be strong for this wheel to roll fast. And if you want to scale, speaking of scale strategies, you just can't have gaps, right? If you got great media buying, but your creative sucks, obviously you're going to have troubles. If you've got those things great, but you've got crappy customer engagement, comment moderation, it's going to slow you down. So if you do everything thoroughly, you can scale a lot easier. Anything to add to that, guys?
Yeah, obviously the spokes in the wheel thing, that's like our go-to pitch sentence.
Soldier at every post.
Soldier at every post. That is also a killer if you're trying to close deals. But the truth is, we've vertically integrated all of the stuff that clients pay and try to manage themselves. We've vertically integrated that, and it comes right down into the buying and owning the inventory. Basically, we've got full control of the whole stack above that, and we want good partners and who can handle everything else.
Love it.
From the creative side here, guys, one piece, could you guys talk about, I think accountability is the key word when it comes to departments, and why you need to vertically integrate? Maybe Cam or Jordan, could you guys chat about, from a creative perspective, the significance that has made in our structuring?
Just putting accountability on our support teams,
yeah,
and how we hold them accountable.
Or more so, I believe each of those departments have accountability to the end result, whereas typically you're not going to have that, right?
Yeah, I think it starts and Jordan, I'd obviously love to get your thoughts on this too, but I think it starts right from the source. We talk about data-driven creative at the very, if it's not a linear path, but if it was, that's kind of the source of all of this, right? Creating content based off of opportunities from, if it's Facebook, from the Facebook side, and converting that into an actual task or job to be done by our creative department. So say it's graphic designer in this case. So you build that, package it up, hand it to your graphic designer. But that wheel, in my opinion, is not going to be effective if you have people that are siloed on the creative team, taking task A, completing it, and then sending it back up the food chain, and ready for task B. Like we going back to that like entrepreneur, like we need to hire, and we have hired entrepreneurs who like create the content, they push it back, and they're like, all right, I can't wait to know how that's doing. How is that gonna, like, is that crushing? Is it not crushing? Okay, if it's not crushing, how can I do a better job? Like that, we've just built that into the ecosystem, and like that's an evolving process. But we have weekly calls with our content managers and figure out how we can better communicate our creative performance back to our creative teams, and we have calls with our creative teams and figure out what information they're lacking when it comes to the ticketing process. So it's like this evolutionary process that we're going through in order to just like shorten the size of that feedback loop. But it's super important, and it's something that we talk about with all creative hires. Like, I don't think we're going to move forward as a team if a graphic designer completes a task and just like, like that was great, on to the next one. Like, we need them to be thinking about, all right, I know I did that, but how can I do it better next time? Like, how can I create a better version of that to sell more products? They're a marketer at the end of the day.
Yeah, and just to build off of that, I think no matter what the size of your company is, the ability to increase the speed of communication, and like we've mentioned so many times on this call, is a feedback loop, something we're constantly trying to work on and increase and get better at, from every level. That ability to let someone know within days on how something's working. If you can get that down to one day, how much faster are you going to get the next piece of content out that's working best, right? And it takes a lot of work from both the content manager, the buyer, to see what's kind of working and what's not. But the faster you can identify those trends and figure out what's working, what directions to head in, and that just comes back to communication every time.
And the big key, it's incentivization as well, right? The big key, we don't know exactly how other agencies are operating with creative, but the fact that our creative team is incentivized to care about that and not just to hand off a creative and say, all done. The fact that they're, incentivized to care how each creative does and to look into that is a huge part of it, I think, Dave?
Absolutely. And I often reflect on that in our world as a performance agency, I think it's maybe easier for us to align incentives, which is a very, very powerful thing, because when in our game, you sell products, you create results, we generate profit. You can then share that profit very easily. In some brands or businesses, it might not be so linear. Like, we can literally, we value transparency. We literally just screenshot the invoice that goes out to the client, and the team knows, hey, I get my percentage of that. They do the math. That's what they're getting on their paycheck. But the one thing that I think holds true across any industry or business is this value of value creation, right? It's just literally, how can every role, whether you're in customer service, comment, moderation, how do you add more value? How do you generate, whether it's just generate value and wins and share in those wins. So if you have a team, how do you just define, if everybody was an absolute rock star and achieved these goals, how do I create a win for them, right? Then when you have communications about their comp and their pathway, just set those clear milestones, right? It is pretty basic stuff, but it requires someone to really think about, how can this person shine? Like, how can this person add more value to the organization and grow? What's their next level? And if they achieve that next level, they've created, net gain for the company. Therefore, they can get a piece of that net gain and just keep going.
Love it. I've got sorry, go ahead, Cam, and I'll get to Robin's question after.
I was gonna say, like, on the topic of incentivization, like non-monetary, I think that Pilothouse has done also a cool job. Like, if you own a business, whether it's creative or not, like, how are you encouraging your employees, your team, or whatever to generate new ideas? Like, throw stuff into the hat. What does that conversation look like internally? Like, in our Slack, we've got tips and tricks, we've got creative ideas, we have all of these like landing pads for people to just like throw good, terrible, shitty, wacky, whatever ideas into the mix. And it's like, hell yeah, we like celebrate all of those ideas. And not only that, like, put it in the place where people are digesting content. So like, for us, we have an internal conversation in Instagram, like, so they can just throw it right into a chat and we can celebrate those ideas. Because for me personally, creatives think differently than like our media buyers do. And they get a lot of fulfillment and satisfaction out of just exchanging knowledge and ideas, more so than they do data and maybe money in some cases. So make sure that's something that you think about, like how are people getting fulfillment on your team, and how are you encouraging like growth on, the non-monetization side as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I like books, and if I was going to recommend a book for some people listening that can't necessarily tie in a fiscal reward for everything like that, Delivering Happiness by the recently passed CEO of Zappos. Like they create a world-class people, like the people who actually like customer management, customer rapport building people who like, just read the book. It's a great example of like how you can kind of instill that culture of everybody caring at every specific level of the company, and I think it comes from the top, seeing how much Kyle and Jeff and Dave care about, not necessarily the success of every brand, but the success of the company as a whole and the employees within. I think that goes a long way to demonstrate to your employees how important they are to you, and what it means for them to grow.
I feel like we could do
Jordan, I appreciate that. I can think of 2 this week that I almost fired because you guys' feathers were getting ruffled.
I feel like we could do a whole podcast just on Slack culture, because I feel I just saw yesterday we're at 7,000 messages a day on Slack. In terms of how we communicate.
Thank God they don't charge on usage.
Oh my God. Yeah, sorry. I just exposed our Achilles heel here. Okay, so we've got some good questions here. One of them is from Robin, who joined us, which is awesome. He'd love to know more about the hiring and recruiting process. What are the first 30 to 60 days for a new hire? What does that look like in terms of training and onboarding? Great question.
I would like to preface this with Dave being the visionary he is again. He identified that there is a group of people, or it might have been Stern. Anyway, this idea of going and looking at the people that you respect the most that you work with in your organization, and then making decisions from there. With the table being set, Dave, the floor is yours.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Just reflecting on that sort of, we built a little bit of a matrix to do with the core in people, right? They're the foundations. We go foundations over skills. We would rather bring a green junior person in and train them for skill, but they bring with them that entrepreneurial drive, the fundamentals. They want to be better every day, yada, yada, yada. What's important there, so before we just get into the first 30 days, like the pre-screen is everything, right? Just today, Cam and I were having a conversation about someone where we encourage them to really ask themselves, especially because we're hiring junior and they don't know the industry, like, are you passionate about this industry, right? It's not even about just being passionate about Pilothouse. It's like digital advertising. Like, do you love this game? If yes, fantastic. This is going to be a very rewarding pathway. But if no, you're going to find that out in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and you're going to change gears. And that's not effective for anybody. We really try and weed that out. So our stick rate is very high. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think our stick rate is quite high in terms of, we really expose the darkness of this industry. So whatever the darkness of your business or your brand is, like, that's the pre-screen. It's like, hey, like, yeah, there's this slag, this phone, this black hole in your pocket with 7,000 messages every day, and you can get sucked in. You need to have the self-control to manage that. Same with the industry in itself. It can become addictive, right? You're putting dollars into a machine and you're hoping to get $3 out. Like that's addictive. Checking your stats, making sure someone understands that, and that fires them up every day when they wake up. Assuming we have a value alignment there, they come on board and enter the first 30 days, which really is knowing that they're often, the first 30 days comes down to showing them the game, right? So learning by example, learning by shadowing, shadowing these guys.
Are those set meetings? Like, are you are in their 30 days, are they going to spend a certain amount of time with Kyle? Like how does that work?
100%. Goal being stock their Cal with invites to things that are ongoing. Go ahead, Cal.
Yeah, it's case by case. And just going back, Dave, this process Dave has mentioned is for juniors. I just want to say that not everyone we hire is junior. Just for the record, this is just a good filtration process to find those right junior process people. Secondly, to Dave's point there about what was it? It was.
We'll go. Why don't you just give another perspective on that first 30, 60, 90 days?
Yeah, great. Totally. Yeah, we hired a project coordinator for the onboarding group, and literally her second day, this is after she's gone through the team screen. So there's another couple of things that we do just before I go there. In that interview process, so Dave tees it up, right? Dave likes him. He's got that good gut check. Dave's a big gut guy. I think you can have a conversation with someone. That's a really good thing. Then it goes to a team screen. So the team is actually a part of the hiring process, and they're actually scored on a report card basis. So yeah, totally. So they'll meet with 2 or 3 people, and the team actually is a part of that hiring decision. It's not all about what Dave thinks. It's not about what I think, because we want a rock star hockey team, right? Whatever that sport is. And so if we don't have people who can get along with each other, it's just not, that's fine. It's not going to work. Like, I thought it was great. Dave thought it was great, but 2 staff didn't. It's just not going to work. So we get a score. It then goes to technicals. So depending on the position, creative is different. Cam, Jordan, you guys can talk about the creative. I know it's a little different. For the buying side, we just grill them. Me and Andrew get in there and we just grill them. I say, this is a horrible job. You don't want this job.
Good.
Tell me why you want it. Yeah, totally. And in a nice way, but like just being straight up and honest and open about that, showing the dark side that Dave was talking about, but also talking about all the benefits. Career advancement, you're going to work with this killer team, there's all these great things, but we get really technical. And if they don't actually have buying experience, in the case of a junior, it's like, did you play video games? Tell me about your favorite video game. Like, what's your favorite whatever. I just try to get anything out of them I can that is technical. And if I have a good vibe, usually at that point, we'll decide within 10 minutes in the DM through Slack.
And it also sets that baseline.
Our HR will send us the scorecard after, so that me and Andrew's decisions aren't confused, and then we go yes or no, and we just pull them in.
I like that idea of talking about getting them, to talk about something that they're really excited about, if for no other reason, then you can sort of set a baseline of their passion levels in a way, right? Like, okay, that, you can get a sense of like, okay, then when we talked about ad buying, were they like that? Or were they, like I've got a lot of different hobbies, but that I'm interested in, a lot of different interests. But when people hear me talk about this industry, they can tell that I'm psyched about it. Not just because I have to talk about it like 8 times a week on podcasts and stuff, but
yeah. And then circling back to the first 30 days, like this project coordinator, like no one has time to train everyone on everything. So we have a schedule. Here's the things. Here's all our documents. Here's all our looms. It's in a drive. It's like not organized perfectly because there's always changing and people are always contributing to it. So there's this like team built thing that people can refer to. But part of the accountability component is you are expected to know this stuff. Like, we're gonna have a 1-month review and we're gonna check in. Here's what I recommend you do. Go figure out who the players are. Go figure out who the most important people are that you want to be like in this organization, and start booking calls. If it's a specific important role, like a very important role where we need to move fast on something, more of a mid to senior hire, I'll be like, you should talk to this person. Go talk to this person. Go talk to this person, and they'll have those calls, and they get a feel for the playing field, I guess. And then in a month or so, while that's happening, ask as many questions as possible. If you're not asking questions, we have a problem. And don't be shy. And in a month, we have a check-in. And if they're happy and we're happy, then we set goals for the next 2 months. And then we go 3 months to a year. What's your trajectory?
And what are those goals? Those goals are account specific, or are they just overall ROAS specific? What are those goals like?
We don't treat people as numbers. It's more about like because everything is always changing. Like, it's not a person's fault if their campaign is dying, if they're proactive and on top of it, and they know what to do, pulling levers, getting creative, and getting landing pages in. It's not their fault if a product isn't working. There's so many variables. The goals are set around what are the roadblocks that you need us to help you remove to accomplish where you want to go. And for every single person, those are different.
Cool.
It's messed up. Like, it's actually insane. Like, it's actually insane the way this has come about, and how natural it's been to flow this way. But if we didn't get the wrong people, this is classic from good to great. If we didn't get the wrong people off the bus early and we didn't get the right people in, this would all fall apart. But because we have such a great team, I think it's working.
Yeah. On top of that, Hitch, like what has been really fascinating is with this onboarding process, you actually like ask people to basically grade you in the onboarding. And it's like from day one, there's an ownership of like, you know, after week 1, 2, 3, 4, you can actually tell us what you're missing and add on to this, like, you know, resource that we're creating. And it's really cool seeing how some people take ownership over it versus others. Like, you know, we have some
Totally.
CMs who are putting together like massive documents on like, these are all of the questions that I had after week 1, and you should add all of this to, and it's just like just builds over time. It's been really
Man,
helpful.
Cam, that's so cool. And I want to hear about the creative process too, because that's 30 people in 8 months or whatever it is. Like that's incredible job that you guys have done. But on that training manual stuff, literally in their reviews after 30 days, we're like, what can be included in this training material that you need? And then we'll ask the same question in 30 days or in 90 days. And in addition to that, I was just sat on a 30-day review like 2 days ago. And the whole question, all of the questions Ella were asking them were about how can we improve your hiring process and your onboarding process? And then she is just on her own optimizing that. It's not about their performance outside of the feedback that we're giving them. Like, you're not asking enough questions. How are you feeling here? But like Ella's, like for half the review, it's Ella trying to figure out how to make your hiring process better.
Totally.
Nice.
One thing though to balance this, and I think the balance is important, is that as much as the process is important in that first 30, 60, 90 days, equally as important is their ability to swim, right? We are known for throwing people in the deep end, sink or swim, and we want swimmers. Because when your account starts tanking and you don't know why, there is no manual. There's no process to follow. You need to just buckle up, figure it out. You just got to take a ton of actions. You got to bang pots and pans, get people smarter than you to come in and help you. And some people don't have that. They will suffer in silence. And so similarly, when someone joins and they're on day 14, they're either going to say, I'm way over my head. I need help. People help me. And we come in, we help them. Right. And like that alone was the thing that's going to, a year from now, 2 years from now, when they reach that point where their account is suffering, they've got it. They will pull in help and they will fix their account and they will get back up on top.
Dave, that's I want to hear about creative more, but just it's so funny just because we're reflecting on our conversations after new people. It's like, did we hire someone? Yeah. Have you seen his messages in Slack? We're like, oh fuck, we have a problem. And then like, where is this guy? Or where is this person? And it's like the reviews start not becoming about their skills, but it's like, yo, you're too quiet. Like we have no idea what you're doing. You're not trying to participate. Like, what's up? It's not about do this. It's like, yo, just like get involved or, it's not going to end well, but we don't say that. It's just like,
It's about the effort though. I like that. You're sort of gauging that effort and that will to swim and to bang pots and pans, as Dave says there. And really it's the people in organizations that are hiders. I've been in a couple organizations where you'll find people that it's that same mentality of like, oh, job's done, next job, that sort of mentality are also the same sort of people that, could kind of blend in and in an organization like ours, it's not really possible over the long term. I feel like just because there's so many shouts going on. There's so much communicative action. There's so many meetings, so much. Yeah. You can't really hide.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting for any organization, hiders and complacency. I think if your organization wants to thrive, you get rid of the hiders and you make it a place that it doesn't allow for complacency, because otherwise things will get stagnant.
And the simple answer there is just like, do you really want to be here? Like if coming back to that sports team analogy, like we're in it for the championship. Right? If we lose the game, there's the people who go off and play a different sport. And then there's the people who get back on the ice and practice because they're in it for the win. Right? And so just really being transparent with people, like not everyone loves this industry and that's okay. Like that doesn't offend me. I don't take that personally if you don't love this industry. I encourage you to get involved in the industry that you do care about. And I'll do everything in my power to make that happen.
We've had those discussions with this year and we didn't can them. We're just like, do you actually want to be here? Does this interest you? Is this something like, it's all good. Just like, either like have a growth plan or an exit plan, but let's just make an action.
Love it.
feel like-
Anything, Cam? We're gonna get to Cam eventually here. How about now? Is there any, because you've grown the creative team, 30 people over the last little while. Any insights on hiring creatives?
Yeah, I mean, on the creative side, there's like two different groups of people. We have client-facing roles, and then we have people in kind of like a support role who are on the tools. So, I mean, for when hiring content managers, the process really is very similar to what Dave was talking about with media buyers. But on the creative side, it's essentially the same process, but we do it in a different way. Like that last pre-screening that you're talking about, where you like basically grill applicants. We encourage people to come in and do like kind of like a working day at the office. So, if you're coming in and applying as a graphic designer or like a video editor, like we're going to hand you 2 video projects and give you a realistic timeline similar to what it would be at Pilothouse. And like, let's just have your work talk for itself. And do a follow-up, review your meeting or your content, sorry, like why are you making this, why did you do this, like go through all those kind of questions. And we let their work speak for themselves, because I think it's a little bit different, right? Like the creative people we hire on the tools often are more introverted than the extroverts that we hire, who are like data-driven accounts people, right? So we have to try and like strike a balance between those two types. But going back to that like communication in Slack, you can be an introvert, and like Slack it's never been easier to contribute ideas or be part of the conversation, because you're just on the other side of a screen, right? So there's no excuse for people to contribute ideas. So
I think the extrovert introvert thing also is really interesting from an organization, or at least from personnel behavior or psychology or whatever. Like the word introvert is not negative, and I think people actually interpret it as a negative word, but it is not. It is equally introvert and extrovert. They're just two different things. And so I really like the way you frame that, Cam.
Yeah, so it's a bit different, but like from the get-go, sorry, Jared, like from the get-go, like even when we were like 5-6 people, like a day in the office thing, like I remember joining Pilothouse and Dave was like, hell yeah, like come on in, hang out with the group, do some tasks for us, and like let's just see if it's a good fit for not only us but for you guys, or for you too. Yeah, and it was just like, oh, that's a really refreshing process, like that I'm not used to anywhere else, and it worked out great. And like we've been kind of rolling that across all of our creative hires, where they come in, do some work for us, and we just straight up see if it's a good fit.
I feel like you really get to see what the company's actually like when you do that. Because if you hate one day in the office, you're going to find out that you're going to hate many days in the office. It's obviously changed. And I think touching on Dave's point about the swimming analogy is hilarious, because it's kind of like we're all like one of those dancing aqua teams, and we're all holding on to each other. We're all going to either swim together or drown together. And the new people are in the middle of that circle, hopefully making the most noise. And we're just supporting them up. But to touch on Cam's point, like about creative hires, I think it's kind of different, and it's unique in the sense that Pilothouse is very like, what have you done? It's not necessarily hired off of your merits of, congratulations, you went to this school, you got these grades. It's like, oh, you've excelled at this sport. Like this shows that, you have a drive, you're competitive. You've got that mission to win. Even coming down to creative, I think it's super fun what me and Cam get to hire on, a little bit different roles, but it's specified on like, I want to see what you've created. Like you could have not gone to school and just been a master on the tool set since you were 11 years old. And honestly, that's what we would hope to see. That and communication, if they can show some cool things that they've done, that they enjoy working on these tools, just like people might enjoy the industry. If they enjoy spending time on these, because that's what they're going to do day in and day out. That's a win in my book for sure.
The collaborative aspect of our team is something I'm always blown away by. Even just, I think it was Evan who got a promotion recently, and people were congratulating him, and the amount of people that were writing these emotional phrases about like how much they'd learned from specific people, or people coming in. Like I forget who it was, but it was someone talking about how much they thought they were a pretty good designer. Then they worked with Robin, and then they got a sense for all these different visual rules. But just the way that the team self-corrects and that everyone's getting better together is such a neat thing on the creative team.
And I think that honestly builds into this, coming back to the purpose of the call, sorry about the noise, scaling teams. When the training occurs as a part of the way you do business, like that's a positive feedback loop, right? Where the more you train, the easier it becomes to train because you've got more people who are able to train, but it's not required as an additional thing that needs to get done if it's built into the process, right? And so as Robin does his job, people observe, there's visibility. So no matter what the organization is, create visibility, create transparency so that when there are wins, when there are learnings, they're learned across the team as opposed to just in a silo.
I love it.
It's interesting, just in contrast to that and this like super hype and all positivity and whatnot. Even the seniors and or medium skill experience levels, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, whatever. There's other tricks or challenges there too, and that those people come in with perceived expectations or mindsets on what something should be. And so on the flip side of this circle, we've also got people who are coming in with us to hold up these other people, but they're swimming in a different pattern. And so it's a Jordan's metaphor. And so that's also been tricky in getting those people aligned in process and like this energy and all these things, because they've come from different positions, obviously, which is different from Pilothouse, just because we're insane. But working with those people has been really rewarding for me also. As a senior buyer specifically, I'm hoping he's going to hear this, but taking his experiences and bringing those to the team and him conforming to the way that we're doing things, it's been a really cool process over the last 6 months, and we're all stronger for it.
Very cool. I have one final question here. Before this has gone a little bit longer than expected, so I hope everyone's okay. Archit asked, what did the hiring roadmap look like, and how did you know the right times to expand offerings or new capabilities? What were the revenue markers at these times? This is what I'm really interested in, because I feel like Dave's, we keep talking about as a visionary here, but the idea of like building an 85, 90 person team, whatever we're at right now, there's, a certain amount of risk in that. So I'm interested in like where, these obvious choices to expand the team, were they obvious, and what were you really looking at in order to make those?
It kind of goes to like this concept of like deep value investing, right? You're investing in something because there's fundamental value there. You're not doing it because there's a fad. And it's like with some of the stuff we do, it's just there's undeniable value, right? Our clients generate profit when this gets done well. So the better we do it, the more we do it, the more profit that gets generated. That's what we're aligned to. So it just becomes a no-brainer, right? Just hire, because all hiring does is it increases our capacity to do that thing more. And the more we do that thing, the more we get new business, because in our game, there's basically, client acquisition and talent retention. Those are the two biggest challenges in our game, but one solves for the other, right? If you can retain the talent, you can attract the clients. And so to unpack that a little bit, it comes down to, if you can do a service that has fundamental value, just trust that, right? Trust that value should be invested in, hire the people there.
And as you expand out from that core offering, if the value is expanded, like especially in the agency game with attribution and things like that, it is so, there's so much value added as you're able to offer different pieces of that marketing puzzle, right? There's a growing momentum that happens there as you take over email, and as you take, as you can get a higher, a deeper integration with a client and a higher overview of their whole business and your role in it, it's going to benefit your position as an agency and give you better ability to succeed.
I think also that was a great question, by the way. I think Dave has always been very good about understanding that you need to build and acquire talent before you're making profit. And I think maybe a difference is that, Dave's and us, we started Pilothouse, apologies. We started Pilothouse with the intention to become, a very large player in this space in Canada. I think, our goal has landed on Canada's largest performance-oriented marketing business. So we're well on our way for a couple of years here. But the important thing there is that we decided to invest and invest and invest and invest and invest. And that was a decision that we made. Risky indeed. We're not in it for immediate profit.
Nice. Well, so invest in the future, go deep. hire amazing people like the ones that we have on this call. I want to thank you guys so much for coming on All Killer No Filler today. Any big plans for the rest of the Friday? What's going on? No, just
Probably a hike for me. Got to get off this this exercise ball here.
nice. Well, enjoy the hike. Thanks again, guys, and we will see you soon. See you on the foosball table.
Ciao.
Peace.